Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Brogi Naric, here to give you a review on Wendell Wild, the new stop-motion animation picture that released on Netflix that is being produced by Jordan Peele and is directed by Henry Selick. And you might think, who is Henry Selick? Well, he's the guy who directed James the Giant Peach, who directed Coraline, and he's also the guy that directed A Nightmare Before Christmas. Not produced, which is what Tim Burton did. This guy is the one that actually directed. And Wendell Wild is his latest project released on Netflix, produced by Laika Studios. Laika Studios is I think it is the biggest stop-motion animation production team in the world. This movie, I did not know was in production, kind of popped up out of nowhere, and I see that it's, stop-motion animation is made by Laika, who they do phenomenal stop-motion animation pictures. And then I see there's black characters. There's Jordan Peele is involved. Peele is involved. And I'm like, solid cast, really good cast. And I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued to see this coming out around Halloween. And overall, I'll say this is a really solid film. A really good addition to the previous Laika Studios films. This will be a non-spoiler review. I might get into a couple of spoilers, but nothing too egregious. So the story of this film focuses on this young girl named Kat, who is orphaned after the death of her parents. She's been in and out of different foster homes, orphanages, and she ends up back in her hometown, run down. She ends up at this Catholic school, and the town is run down. There's an evil corporation that's trying to build this prison there. And while this is going on, this girl finds out she has mystical powers, and she gets involved with these two demons, and she makes a deal with them as a way to try to get her parents back. And then it kind of goes haywire from there. This guy has a certain style, a certain motif that he likes. Coraline is a bit more fantastical. There's a fantastical element to this, but I think it's got a slightly harder edge. Nothing too crazy, but it is on Netflix. It is PG-13. There's slightly more cursing and stuff like that. And there's slightly more sort of real world stuff that this movie is kind of tackling. And I think that's where some of the problems, for me at least, kind of comes in, where I think the story is kind of all over the place. There's different ideas trying to come together, and I don't think they all mesh that well, but it's still a comedy story. So we have our main character, Kat, who is played by Lyric Ross, who I believe is on This Is Us, another YSS show. But she does very well as the character Kat, who's this tough girl. She's got a hard edge to her, and you buy it because she's been in and out of different foster homes and different orphanages. She's trying to be a loner, and she is very standoffish. She doesn't know how to make friends. She doesn't want to make friends, but as she says, when people are close to her, they always die. And she holds herself responsible for the death of her parents, even though it's not really her fault, but she feels very guilty for it. She makes some tough decisions, but she's a fun character. She's kind of standoffish, but it makes sense because the people around her are kind of idiots or just annoying assholes, except for Sister Helly, who is one of the nuns at the school, voiced by Angela Bassett. She's kind of trying to be a mentor to her. There's a certain special thing about Kat that she's kind of going through, and Helly can kind of relate to her. She's going to try to help her out and be a positive role model in her life. And Angela Bassett does a very good job as this character. We also have the character of Raul, who's played by Sam Zelaya. This is their first time acting. This is their second credit, and I can kind of tell they're not the best voice actor, but it felt real. They felt like the actual young kid that's in this weird situation. Raul is another student at the all-girls Catholic school, and there's a lot of, I don't know if there's necessarily controversy, but there's a lot of positivity around this film for the Raul character. Raul is there's a trans boy, there's a born girl that identifies as a boy, and there's a very good character. They're artists, sort of a loner, and they're trying to figure out themselves in the world and help, Kat get out of that shell. I thought it was a very fun character, and how they handled that representation, I thought was very good. It wasn't overly preachy. It felt very real. It didn't necessarily take away from the story or anything like that. So I thought that was handled very well. We also have the characters of Wendell and Wild, who are the two demon brothers, who end up somehow bumping into Kat and making this deal with her because she wants her parents. They have their own goals, but trailers haven't really said. There's this whole thing with them where they're in the underworld. It's not necessarily hell. I guess it's kind of hell, but they're in this underworld, and they are stuck in this sort of weird dead-end job. I don't necessarily want to say what the job is because it's very integral to the plot, but it's also very weird and sort of random. But they're stuck at this job where they are forced to work for this big demon that they work for. And they have their own dream dreams and ideas that they want to get out into the world, but they're being oppressed. So Wendell and Wild also get involved in this completely different storyline where there's this evil corporation called CashApp that once again is trying to take over the town. Wendell and Wild sort of, in a roundabout way, ends up getting a deal with them, and it goes kind of all over the place. So we have this weird couple that runs CashApp, and the lead guy name is Wayne. They're British, and I thought he was a Trump parody, but then the more I thought about it, he's actually they're more like a Boris Johnson parody, which is kind of random. A character, Father Bess, who is the priest at Catholic school, voiced by James Hong. James Hong is great in anything, and he's also great in this. He's this corrupt priest that's just like the Klaxon group. They're kind of beefing because Klaxon wants the prison to make money, and then he has this government program where they're taking in bad kids and they're getting funded through the government to pet them in school. He doesn't really care about the kids. He just wants the kids in the school for the funding, and that's how Cat is brought into the school. That's one of the things, if you don't like sort of political or preachy, which is it's not preachy, but it's like political elements in your movies, especially people get weird about it when it's kids movies, even though some of the best kids movies have these sort of political message. You might not gonna like it. I didn't hear a lot of controversy with Wendell and Wild, like as opposed to like Lightyear turning red. Maybe when it's Disney, people seem to get all up in arms about it, but like the story is like very fantastical, but it's touching on a lot of real world issues here. Wendell and Wild kind of touches on the prison industrial complex, school to prison pipeline, voter fraud, gender identity, foster care corruption, private school industrial complex, separation of church and state, generational trauma, and creative suppression. There's a lot of things going on in this movie. And then outside of that, you got the mystical stuff. And then you got this sort of like Ghostbuster Monster Hunter sort of element. And then you got this sort of weird sort of almost X-Men like superpower element going on too. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of stuff that, like I said, that's going on in here. I don't know if it all meshes well, but some of it could have been probably explained a little bit better or set up, eased into it. Because unlike Coraline, where it takes time to get to the weird stuff, this movie starts off with this death, and then it's just immediately like, here's the demons, and this is what they're doing, and it's kind of all over the place. But it's not a bad time. I will say I did enjoy myself. One of the things, of course, is Leica Studios and their animation, with stop motion animation. Beautiful stuff. I love the character models. I love the character designs, the aesthetics, and the soundtrack is very good too. The soundtrack is very rock and punk rock inspired. At first, I was kind of like, oh, that's cool. I wish they would have focused on maybe do some black artists. Most of these songs I've never heard of. And then upon looking up the soundtrack, there are different black rock and roll artists in here that they do focus on. So I thought that was pretty cool how they did that. A lot of songs I'd never heard of. Usually if you got black leads, it's usually always, well, we got to lean on hip hop. And this one, they didn't lean on hip hop, but they did lean on another genre, black artists. So I respect it. I thought that was pretty cool. If I was to give Wendell and Wild a grade, I would give it a B or a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. The first time I watched it, I was kind of and then but watching it again, it grew on me, and I do really enjoy the movie. It's a good time. Not the greatest, but not terrible. And I think Netflix might be a better way to go, or they can both do theatrical and Netflix. I know stop animation is very expensive. There's some scenes at the end of this where they show like behind the scenes of the different models, the scales of the models is really cool, but it's also very expensive. So I don't know how much Netflix is willing to keep paying for these movies. And I don't know how much they can keep petting in theaters. They don't always make big money. Like that's the thing with Leica. They make beautiful, interesting movies, but they don't bring in the big bucks like, say, a Pixar does, or a Disney in general, or even what's the other one? Universal stuff. They don't bring in the big money like that. So hopefully, this will be a good alternative for them to keep their creativity and their freedom. And, maybe go slightly a little bit edgier to a degree if they're going to be on something like Netflix. That's just a suggestion. Definitely worth checking out. But you guys let me know what you thought about Wendell Wild in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and stay tuned for more videos. Okay. Peace.